My name is Joseph Taylor, and you're watching Homeschooling Daddies, and this is...
Zach.
This is...
James.
And on today's episode, we're going to be answering the questions that you brought to us via YouTube, Facebook, and through our personal email. So you make sure that you stay tuned and come right back right after this little intro. Hi, welcome back, and the first question is coming from our YouTube channel, and our first question comes from My Little Smarty Pants. The question is, I'd like to know what Zachary thinks of homeschooling versus public school.
Well, public school, like you have to go to school 8 hours a day, which really sucks for me. And the teacher speaks for such a long time, and that's what most of your time spent listening to is just she'll be like, okay class, now we're gonna do reviews. Oh wait, we need a review again, and so because someone didn't understand, and then it's just and eventually I just feel like I can just put my head down and go be like that poor person.
So you feel that you get sort of frustrated having to wait there?
Yep.
To move on to the next subject?
And they make you review for the whole week until next Monday.
Right. And that sort of got frustrating for you?
Yeah.
Why?
Well, my school down there.
Uh-huh. The public school that you went to?
Mm-hmm. Well, made me kind of feel like I said, that they were making you do reviews way too much, so I basically got so tired of it that eventually when I just didn't do my work because I already knew it, and it's just so
you had to wait there
frustrating.
for other people to finish?
Yeah, because I just didn't do my work, and I just let it in my desk, and I'm like...
Yeah. Whereas with homeschool, what happens once you finish your work for that subject?
No, done.
So once you finish your work for, let's say, math, what do you do then?
I just put it away.
And you move on to what?
Next subject. The
next subject, right. So you don't have to wait for any other kids, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And what do you think of that?
I think that's really cool.
Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So our next question comes from the Ginger Mommy Diaries. And she asks, such a beautiful family. Glad to see you guys back making videos again. Do you ever plan on expanding your family? And that question also comes from Heather Logan too, where she says, great family. Do you plan on adopting more children? That's a very good question, Heather and Ginger Mommy. It's we've actually spoke about that before, right?
Yeah, it was actually more when he was younger, and we spoke about that. Probably when he was about 2. 1 or 2.
3.
Yeah, in that range there.
Yeah. But now that he's getting older too, and that we are doing our homeschooling, it's things have changed too, and we've actually talked about it recently. But I think what we're gonna do is if we do adopt, I mean, it's not off the table 100%, but if we do adopt, it's gonna be after we actually buy our own home, because right now we're renting, and when we adopted him, we had actually owned our own home, so we're do the same process again. It's where we actually have our own home. So maybe after we buy a home in the future, whenever that may be, then we might consider it. But as of right now, only because we are renting, it's just we can't have a dog here. So that's why we don't have a dog. But so thanks for asking.
Yeah.
So the next question comes from Dr. J. It's her YouTube handle is DAJEDU. But we call her Dr. J. And it's cute family. And she has multiple questions for us. So Dr. J, to answer your questions, is the first question is, what do you consider a successful homeschool day? Well, for me personally, a successful homeschool day is when we can get it done within a couple hours instead of versus having to go through the whole day. Having to teach him because he might not be in the mood, or there might be some behavioral issues or something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so
If
you
it's-
agree?
Yeah, if it's too like when if it's really if we were going through the whole day and we were up until about 9 o'clock doing homeschool, then I would be getting mad, and then I'd feel like I would just probably not want. I would probably like yell and say I don't want to do this anymore, and then leave because
It's
we
frustrating.
can't go through the whole day and waste time like that.
Yeah, but we usually don't stay up till 9
Yeah.
doing schoolwork. But we usually do start his schoolwork in the afternoon because that's when he learns best. In the morning, it's kind of useless to start school in the morning, just because of his special needs issues, and he's a lot more focused after 12 noon. So that's usually when we do start the homeschool. So like a successful day would be if we were able to get it done by 2 or 3. And then one that's not successful is if it takes like till 5 or 6. So those days when we can get done in like 2 to 3 hours, those are successful days. All right, her next question is, love your son's style. Has he always been that amazingly cool, or is that a recent development? Your fashion sense.
Recent development.
Yeah.
Do you think it's something more current that you've done, or something you've had? I think it's something you've had
Mhm.
Yeah.
since you started picking out your own clothes.
Mhm. And then and that's what and wearing necklaces is also feels good to me, because I think that it's like really cool looking and good looking.
But we basically like giving him free reign to do his own fashion as long as it's appropriate. So we within the past couple of years we let him pick out his own clothes and put his own clothes together, and that way he can start to develop his own individual style, just as long as it's appropriate
Yeah.
for where we're going and the type of function we're going to, or like restaurant or things like that.
Yeah.
But we do not allow baggy pants, and he doesn't like baggy pants either, and in fact he always like wears belts and everything. So no baggy pants allowed in this household.
I like baggy pants kind of, but not too baggy, because
Well, we're talking about where your butt is showing and your underwear showing.
oh yeah.
Okay, and then her third question is, how do you anticipate the way you homeschool changing as your son gets older? Well, it's already changed since we started, because we started it after his first grade year in June of 2014. And when we first started off, we started doing it almost identical to public school, and where we had like math for 1 hour, reading for 1 hour, science for 1 hour, and we found that didn't work.
And we even started around the same time too.
Yeah.
Try to keep it around the same schedule, but that wasn't working.
Yeah, so it's just like, as you've learned from our update video that we did a couple months ago, it's his homeschooling is constantly evolving, and as he grows, and then as his needs change as he gets older, because his special needs are going to change as his body develops and as the hormones increase and all that good stuff that goes along with puberty. It's just like his homeschool is going to have to evolve too around it. So we expect changes. In fact, we expect changes next year. So it's not necessarily in the future, but as each year goes on, I think that's something that every homeschooling parent goes through. It's like they have to adapt to their children's needs, you know, to help them better learn and to better understand the material and master the material that they're learning. So yeah, we do expect changes. All right, well, thank you, Dr. J, for your questions. We really do appreciate it. All right, the next one is from Jada and Mom Fun AG, but also known as Homeschooling a New Yorker. And she writes, what changes have you seen in Zachary since you started homeschooling from when he was in public school? That's her first question. I would say one of the changes we've noticed is that he's focused more now on his academics,
What does that mean?
on actual learning. Whereas in public school, he always had to focus on his behavior, because that's what we were always called into the school for, was behavioral issues. So that's what we always had to talk to him about, was his behavior. And that's all the teachers were focused on, behavior. So when he was going to public school, it was always about how to be a good boy, according to the way they want him to be. Whereas here in homeschool, we can actually focus on his education and what he's learning. And that's the difference we've seen in him, would you say?
Yeah. Yeah. Public school, yeah, they wanted me to be good every single time, but I can't help it if I'm bad sometimes. I really can't. It's just something that I do sometimes. And and then the slightest little thing, they'll send me to a solution room or a principal's office and say I'm in trouble for one little thing.
Right. And so that was the major issue we had. And so now it's just like we know how to like control his ADHD, and when the behavior starts to get out of control, we know what we have to do. So it's not really that big of an issue, or we might just change his schedule to where it might benefit more. Like we don't homeschool in the morning, we homeschool in the afternoon because the morning times is just out of the question because it just doesn't work at that time period. So, you know, that's the major change that we saw in him from homeschool from public school. Alright, so Jada and Mom also asked, how long have you guys been together and when did you decide to adopt? Well, we've been together now for 20 years. February, March, April, May.
20 years.
20 years, about 5 months. And so when did we decide to adopt? We decided to adopt in around 2005, and then that's when we decided to look for a home. And so we found a home in 2006 and we got it ready, and then that's when we started the adoption process. And it's like we did our home study with an adoption agency here in Washington State, and the adoption agency worked with the state agencies to help us find Zachary. And then Zachary was finally placed with us in, when was it? In like March of 2007, when he was only a couple months old. And then he was with us as a foster child for 11 months before he became legally ours in the courts. So it's a rather quick process here in Washington State to adopt a child. Especially if you're going through an adoption agency versus through the state DSHS agency.
Which is known as a closed adoption, right?
Well, sometimes there's closed adoption, but we actually have an open adoption with his birth mom. So we have contact with her all the time, and he talks with her all the time, and he really likes that, right?
Yeah. And that home thing is, my papa here had to like do construction and everything he was making a couple rooms because he thought there was going to be more, but really it was just me. So he got rid of all the stuff that he didn't need it, because he had like one for me as a baby, and then he had one for a kid that's about my age now, which is 9 and a half, and then he had one for like a teenager. And then...
Well, that's because whenever you go through the adoption process, we don't know what age group we're going to get placed with.
Yeah.
So we had...
Alright, yeah, so when we started the adoption process, we did go through a lot of construction in our home, and we were actually placed with other children that were fostered to adopt parents, because that's what we were certified as, foster adopt parents. And like we had a sibling group of 3 boys, and then we also had another single child who was about 6 or 7 at the time. And then Zachary came along, and his transition with us was so smooth, and then his mom actually chose us to be his parents. So that's why it went so smoothly. And usually here in Washington State, the process is rather quick, because they don't like to keep the kids in the system for that long. So Jada and Mom also asked, does Zachary understand that family comes in many different styles, a mom and dad, a dad and dad, a mom and mom? And the short answer to that is yes, he does. Ever since he was 3 and he started to be socialized with other kids in parks and started learning about the different dynamics within a family, that's when we started teaching him how there's different types of families, like a mom and dad, like some kids may have a mom and dad, and how some kids may have 2 dads, or how it may have 2 moms, or that majority of kids out there only have like 1 parent. Like they may only have a mom raising them, like me when I'm growing up. I only had my mom raising me basically ever since I was a little kid. And so how he is actually lucky, because not only does he have like 2 dads, but he also has a mom, so he actually has like 3 parents, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's kind of cool, huh? Yeah. It's like when there's most kids out there that only have like 1 parent. All right. And our next question comes from Joanna Hunter. I'm homeschooling my third grade child, but there is quite an age gap. But there's quite an age gap between her and her siblings, so she's basically an only child. I'd like to know how you answer that always ask questions about an only child not being socialized with other children. That's a very good question, Joanna Hunter. To answer that is like I tell people, especially when it comes to Zachary, it's just like he is very sociable. In fact, that's one of the issues we had with him in public school was the fact that he was he was too social. And it's just like, and that was our major issues because he always wanted to interact with other kids, and he doesn't have issues with that. And since we started homeschooling, it's like we have a whole neighborhood of kids that he plays with on a regular basis. And then we also take him to parks, and then coming up soon, because we do live here in the Seattle area, there's only a short period of time when we can actually do outdoor sports, but we do plan to get him enrolled in like soccer or some sort of outdoor sport, and there he's going to be meeting people. But I'd say one of the difference between public school children and homeschool children is like when their socialization skills are better, because when they have to constantly go out and meet kids for the first time, so they have to constantly introduce themselves to kids versus those who are in public school who are with the same kids for a long period of time and maybe even year after year after year. So they already know these kids as when they go back the following year. Whereas someone that's homeschool is like when we go to a park for the first time or a play area, they use their interacting and social skills to meet and introduce themselves to new people on a daily basis. So I feel homeschool children have more of an advantage, especially when they go off to college, where college is nothing like public school, and where they have to actually interact and meet new people on a quarterly or semester basis. So there is really no issue when it comes to socialization with at least our homeschool child. And from what I understand, it's like that with all homeschool children. It's like you don't have a problem like meeting new people, right?
No.
Yeah.
But
crazy.
what's that mean? Why I'm too sociable?
It's what were some of the major issues that you got in trouble for at public school when you went?
For doing things I shouldn't have.
Well,
like
kind of
what?
like talking to other kids whenever you should be focusing on
Like one, yeah,
subject.
because like some of the major things that we got complaints from your teachers were that you're always talking with other kids and you're interacting with other kids, and it was always stuff you wanting to be social with other kids when it wasn't time to be social, right?
Yeah.
All right, so thanks for your question, Joanna Hunter.
Teachers.
All right, so our next question comes all the way from Mexico, from Homeschool Mexico. Hi, I'm a new sub on your channel, and I really love it. I'm from Mexico, but I think you are amazing parents. Thank you, Homeschool Mexico. And my question is, why are you doing homeschool? Well, like I mentioned earlier, it's like one of the major reasons why we are homeschooling was because of our son with his special needs and how the school was more focused on his behavior than actually his academics and his education. And so we were getting called on almost a daily basis about something behavioral related. And I think what put the nail in the coffin was when he came back at the end of his school year, in his first grade school year, and with his books and his workbooks, and they were only a quarter done, where all the other pages were blank. So it makes you wonder, it's just like, were they even focused on his education more so than his behavior? And because that was the only thing we got called in from. I mean, for his whole first grade year, it's just like
Behavior.
right, and it was very little on his academics, if any. I remember the last time we spoke probably about his academics was when he was in kindergarten. And so when he came back with those blank notebooks, that's when we decided that there needs to be some changes. All right, so thank you, Mexico, for your question.
Yeah.
All right, so our next question comes from Avalon Arthur. Very awesome to meet your family, and Zachary's bear is so cute. I'd like to hear about some of your son's favorite books or books you are using along with your main curriculum. Also, are you guys doing anything for art this year? Okay, well, his favorite book this year happens to be the Magic Treehouse book series. I don't have one here with me, but he actually this year for the first time actually
Read a chapter book.
yeah, he showed an interest. He actually picked up a chapter book, which was one of the Magic Treehouse series books, and started reading it.
Without you telling me, you were just getting ready for me to do something to do like math or something, and then I just picked up a Magic Treehouse book, and then I just decided to read that to pass the time.
Right. So he really loves that series. So we went out thrift store shopping one day, and I found a whole bunch of them. So we're actually incorporating those into his reading curriculum for this school year and probably into next school year because we do have a lot of them. So, but yeah, it's just like his first chapter book. We're very proud of him. And so, and we're going to be continuing on to that series.
They may have very little pictures, but still, it tells me a lot about the story when there's more words, and that just made me start thinking that Jack and Annie are the coolest.
Right. All right, and then the next part of Avalon Arthur's question is, are you guys doing anything for art this year? And the answer is yes. We're going to be doing a lot of painting. I'm going to be putting out an art curriculum video within the next couple of weeks. I just want to gather more video footage of him actually doing artwork. But we're going to be doing painting. We're going to be doing beadwork and other art projects from this art lab book that I got.
I have something to say. Yeah. You can get footage of my art. I have one of my art books over there that I made. Like, it's just one of my drawing books, though.
But I mean, I actually want to get footage of you actually doing your artwork in action.
Like painting?
You know, like when you do your Jackson Pollock. And that's one thing, too. It's just like we plan to do a Jackson Pollock inspired painting because we did a whole unit study on Jackson Pollock. And because we live here in the Pacific Northwest, it's always raining. And so trying to incorporate Mother Nature into our time schedule is kind of hard at times. So we're just waiting for that one right day when it fits into our schedule to where we can go outside and he can do his Jackson Pollock inspired painting. And when he does that, I want to be filming it for I can put it in within the art curriculum video.
One thing I like too is when he went through the Jackson Pollock, and then he actually will pick things out when we go places, and he'll like, well, that kind of looks like Jackson Pollock. So he kind of relates it, so which is pretty cool to see.
Right.
Yeah, I actually made a Jackson Pollock coloring by like scribbling. I like actually was just scribbling, not even thinking about what I'm making. I just like scribbling, going like this and this, and then going in circles and zigzagging, and then with all the different colors.
Right.
And I would even put a bunch of crowns in one hand, equally sticking down, so that way I could like color with multiple crayons.
Yeah, as part of his unit study, we've done it on multiple mediums where he's used markers. He's used like I found online a printout of a Jackson Pollock painting, and he had to color in the squiggly lines and everything with different colors and things like that. So we're building up to his painting.
Remember when we did the chalk one?
Yeah, we did one with chalk too. So we're using different mediums before we actually get to paint. And he actually already has his paint picked out. We have the canvas. I let him pick whatever colors he wants to paint because it's all his creation with the colors he likes that's inspired by Jackson Pollock painting.
But it's only 3 colors. I don't know what I'm
supposed to do. No, we did 5. Yeah. All right.
It's only about 5 colors, but I don't know what I'm supposed to make of that.
It'll come to you.
Yeah, it'll come to you. That's part of being an artist. Yeah. All right, and then our last YouTube question comes from Molly. Hi, Molly. She's one of my funniest YouTuber fans or followers. And her YouTube channel is called Vintage Life in the Piney Woods. And her question is, yay, we got to meet the family. Zachary needs to have his own TV show. No kidding. And guess what, Molly? We're actually working on that. So more details are to come, right, Zach?
Mm-hmm.
All right. And then her question is, what made you decide to homeschool? How does Zachary feel about homeschooling? Well, as we mentioned earlier, why we decided to homeschool because of his public school. And so how do you feel about homeschooling?
Homeschooling is great. You don't one, you don't need to walk and you don't need to worry about being late for school.
Right?
Every time my papa took me, I was on time at public school. Every time Daddy took me, he stays up a lot with his work and schoolwork on the computer, so would end up sleeping in, and then he would go run. He would wake up knowing it's past time, and then he'd be running and then getting all dressed, and then he'd be like, "Quick, grab your backpack, grab your lunch and everything," and then we'd have to be like walking really fast to school.
It was hard to keep track of their schedules too, with all the half days. And it was very.
Yeah, I don't know what it's like in your states, but here in Washington State, their school schedules are wacky. It's almost like every other Friday is a half day, and then there's no school days because of teacher in service days, and so it was just very wacky. And so it was very unlike when we went to school in the 1970s and 80s, where you went to school Monday through Friday, no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Yeah, so it's like totally different nowadays.
I think half days are the coolest.
Yeah, all the kids do. All right. Okay, so those are questions from our YouTube followers. Thank you very much for them.